Hi, I'm sure that you know about the Peace Corps, but did you know that there's a way to volunteer in the United States? Stay tuned for the next Connecting Our Community and find out all about it. Hi, my name is Pat Shoemaker, and I'd like to welcome you to Connecting Our Community. Our guest this evening is Nicki Fiocco, and I probably said that incorrectly, and I apologize. And you are with Americorps, Volunteer Maryland, a great organization. I'm very excited to talk to you about this. So, first of all, tell us exactly your organization and what it is and what it does.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me here. This is exciting that we connected through volunteerism. So that's really exciting, number one. So the program that I'm a director for is Volunteer Maryland. And Volunteer Maryland is an Americorps program. And we're housed in the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives. And Volunteer Maryland was one of the very first demonstration projects for Americorps, and I'll get into what Americorps was in a minute. So we place Americorps members in nonprofit organizations throughout the state, and they focus on building their organization's capacity through focusing on the volunteer program. So we offer trainings to our members on volunteer management, how to manage change, volunteer recruitment, volunteer retention, everything volunteerism. We train our members on that, and they go out on this throughout the state and make magic happen.
So your organization is sort of the clearinghouse for volunteers for just state projects or private things, or is it just government type projects?
Those are really good questions and really great distinctions that I always like to make about especially Volunteer Maryland, because our name is kind of deceptive because we have volunteers in there. So when we look at our program, we are an Americorps program, so we actually don't have any volunteers. All of our members in our program are members of a collective of over 70,000 Americorps members that serve across the entire United States every year. So different Americorps programs like Teach for America or Literacy Lab, those are Americorps programs that other members could serve in, and they focus on different focus areas underneath the Corporation for National Community Service, which is the federal arm that funds the Americorps program. There's many, many layers to the Americorps program.
I was just going to say, let's take a step backward and go back to Americorps. So I said in the tease that there's the Peace Corps, and I think everybody's familiar with that you sign up and you go to whatever foreign country and you live there, whatever. And then this is Americorps, but it isn't like the Peace Corps specifically. You're not sent to, you live in Maryland and you're sent to Mississippi and you live there and whatever. So it's not like that, correct?
Well, you can serve in other states, right? So Americorps is across the country. So there's opportunities throughout the entire United States. Volunteer Maryland in the Governor's Office of Service and Volunteer Maryland, in the Governor's Office of Service and Volunteerism, there's about 19 Americorps programs. Salisbury has an Americorps program, Frostburg has an Americorps program, so there's differing opportunities. You can also serve in New York. So if you live in Maryland and you want an opportunity out in Utah, you can apply for an Americorps program and move out there and serve for a year in a brand new state and learn a completely different community.
So it really is a lot more like the Peace Corps than I thought.
Yeah.
It really is. You go there, and do they pay your living stipend and
so
all of that?
There is a small stipend that is offered to each member, and it's tiered. It depends on how many hours you serve. Our members with Volunteer Maryland serve full-time, so they serve 40 hours a week, 1,700 hours in about a year. Those members receive a stipend, and depending on the program sets that bar for what that stipend is going to be. But honestly, it ranges between $13,000 and $20,000, depending on the program that you're serving with. And you mentioned Peace Corps a couple times, and Americorps' history is actually born out of Peace Corps. And if you've ever heard of the Civilian Corps during Theodore
Second,
Roosevelt's.
yeah.
Right, right. So all of that was kind of a movement into this, but how can we have Americans serving Americans in the most critical need areas in our country? And in the early 1990s, like 1992, the Points of Light Foundation was
George
created
Bush.
by George Bush. And they funded 8 demonstration projects throughout the country to look at this idea of Americans serving Americans. There was Conservation Corps, Volunteer Maryland was one of those, like I said, demonstration projects. And so Volunteer Maryland received funding from Americorps in like 1994. Was like the first year that it was like the A was actually like something, right?
Yeah.
And it's really great because there's a picture of one of our Americorps members shaking hands with President Clinton, the very first year that Americorps was kind of brought forth. So does that give you a picture of what Americorps is? And every year there's funding for about 70,000 members. And they're all across the state, in Alaska and Puerto Rico, everywhere across the United States. Yeah. We had a member serving, I think 2 years ago, that moved from from Denver. And she came out here and she came in for an interview. She came in to sign her new hire paperwork the day before our service year started, and she went straight to Baltimore, and she has never left. She served at a seed school in Baltimore for a year, and then she went on to stay in Baltimore and do great things. So we can even like reel people into Maryland, right? If they have a good program.
Yeah, that's great. So do you find that a lot of Marylanders do go out of state, or is it really, do you find that pretty much there's enough volunteerism available that people really can find the niche, they can find just the project that they want to do without moving out of state?
So I can't really speak to where people serve in different Americorps programs. Don't forget, when we're talking about Americorps programs, it's different than volunteers because they do get paid. Mm-hmm. And this is a correction that we make all the time. Number one, you always know that somebody doesn't know anything about Americorps when they call them Americorps.
Oh, yes.
The S is silent. And it's really great when somebody's having a conversation and tell me about those Americorps. I'm like, first of all, they're alive. There's blood running through their system. And they do get a paid stipend, and it's for a short amount of time, a year. Sometimes you can serve for 300 hours. So it depends on how you want to serve. So there's plenty of opportunities for people in the United States to serve, as well as opportunities across the spectrum of what you're looking for in your life. I actually served in the program that I'm the director of when I was 37 years old. A lot of times when people think about, oh shoot, I told my age. Yeah. Just last year, it was just great, right? Yeah. So people of all ages can serve in Americorps, because a lot of times when people think about this program, they think about that 20-something-year-old that doesn't know what to do after finishing college.
And exactly. Or finishing high school. Mm-hmm. You know, you maybe don't know what you want to do, and you say, what the heck, I'll live abroad for a year serving in Uganda or whatever the case may be. And so I thought it was fascinating that there is every age range, every ability, disability, everything. But how did you get involved in the organization?
So I actually applied through my site at the time, which was in Anne Arundel County. So I really thought I was actually applying to something with Anne Arundel County. So when they told me to go to Baltimore for an interview for this Americorps thing, I was confused but excited, right? So I actually didn't really understand what I was doing until almost a week into what's called pre-service training. It's like 10 days of a real deep, intense training of volunteer management. What is Americorps? You know, how can you serve? Because there's some things that Americorps members can't do. I can't go down to Annapolis and lobby for anybody. I can't, do certain things while I'm serving. So we had to learn all of that. So it wasn't until about a week into my service that I realized that I was part of something that was really, really special, and that I was going to feel really, really good about. And I'll be honest with you, after my year of service, the trajectory of my career and my life completely skyrocketed. Yeah. I couldn't even imagine. I didn't know that just by accepting this position that my life was going to change so dramatically. And I'm learning, and I know learning so much about service and community and volunteering and Americorps and what it means to sacrifice and accomplish something at the end of the year and be able to duplicate it. So I like to say I kind of Forrest Gumped myself into it. You know, I wasn't quite sure what I was doing, but I just kept running, and you know, there was like shrimp and there was like chocolates, and it was fun. You know, so that was my experience, and then I just kind of kept going after that. I got hired by my site and worked there, and then made my way back to the program.
Yeah. And so do you find that it's easier now to recruit, I don't know if you use that word, but to bring other people in as volunteers? It seems like all people talk about is me, and everybody's just, you know, cocooning. You get inside your house and you don't want to go out, you don't want to interact. You do the social media thing and your thumbs move a lot, but your body doesn't.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's easier
It's great because we train our Americorps members. They're the ones that are recruiting the volunteers for their sites, right? And so the need can be very, very different depending on what type of volunteer they're recruiting for. For example, we're partnered with CASA of Prince George's County, and their volunteers work with children that are, or individuals that are aging out of the foster system. And, you know, that they require a very long commitment for their volunteers. So they're not going to go out and recruit, you know, hundreds of volunteers, and they're looking for a very specific skill set of volunteers. Where we also were partnered with Anne Arundel County Forestry Board, and they are like, give us the bodies to remove the invasive species, you know, we want more volunteers. So it depends on what the opportunities are. But one of the biggest things right now is really valuing everybody's time, right? Because that's the one thing we can't get back.
Exactly.
We cannot get that back. So we really train our Americorps members to find out what motivates the current volunteers at that organization. So go in there and do a needs assessment and find out why people are there. I mean, there's a group of volunteers that are here with us right now, Pat, right? Like, what's motivating them? And so once you can tap into a volunteer's intrinsic motivation, then you can find opportunities for them to continue to serve and also elevate their service. Because one of the best recognitions for volunteers is to give them more responsibility, you know, and have them go from, you can kind of think of somebody in a remedial position to somebody that's in a leadership position because they know so much about the program. So that's what we really work with our members during the service year to help them understand. It's the messaging, it's using social media, but you got to do it on all different angles, right? Like when I was serving, I hung up posters because I knew that some volunteers weren't going to go to the Facebook page and some volunteers weren't on Twitter. So I needed to go to Panera and hang up those volunteer posters. So it really depends on what you're looking for. But, you know, overall, the Americorps members have such different, and one of the exciting things, and sorry, I'm going on for so long.
That's good.
One of the great things, so as an Americorps member with Volunteer Maryland, you're part of a cohort. So right now we have 20 Americorps members that are serving in the state of Maryland, all over the place. We have Kent County, we have Garrett County, we have Montgomery, we have all over the place, Anne Arundel. Everybody's doing similar work at different sites and very, very different work, but they're all doing the same thing of engaging volunteers. So what's great about being an Americorps member with Volunteer Maryland is you have that cohort of what worked for you to recruit that volunteer? Like, how did you get that volunteer to come in, and where'd you post? And so that's what's exciting, especially as a director of the program, to see them using each other to just expand their programs at their different sites.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But do you find that volunteers or recruiting volunteers is the same in Montgomery County as it might be in southern Prince George's County or Garrett County? Or is a volunteer, or do you think that where you live makes you more or less? I mean, I always think of the people like in Western Maryland who are used to doing things as a group, you know, to the community, whatever, different mindset than people who might live in a more urban Montgomery County who are busy, go kind of thing. Do you find? And we're coming to our break, so I asked you that question unfairly, so answer it and then we'll finish the answer on the other side.
Okay, so answer it, don't answer it.
Answer it.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I think it goes back to the type of the volunteer opportunity that you're recruiting for. So, again, like I said, we have somebody out in Garrett County, so there are community opportunities for her to recruit volunteers to work together in a community, on a community garden. It really depends on what that opportunity is.
Okay, and on that thought, we will take our break, but we will be back. I hope you're enjoying this conversation as much as I am, so please stay with us for Connecting Our Community.
I'm Alejandro Escobedo. Music has always been my life, but that was almost taken away from me by hepatitis C. Thankfully, I received treatment and stopped cancer before it started. Yes, cancer. Most people don't know there's a link between certain viruses and cancer. I didn't know, but I do now, and so should you. That's why I've partnered with the Prevent Cancer Foundation. The 3 most common viruses linked to cancer are human papillomavirus, or HPV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Every year, more than 27,000 men and women are diagnosed with a cancer caused by HPV, and up to 65% of all liver cancers are caused by Hep B or C. These cancers are preventable. Getting screened, vaccinated, and treated isn't scary, but cancer is. For more information, visit thinkaboutthelink.org. Together, we can stop cancer before it starts.
Hi, welcome back to Connecting Our Community. And we're speaking about Americorps, Volunteer Maryland, and apparently I was misusing the two, so please correct me.
Oh, no, I think what you were getting at was great. Like, let's talk about volunteerism. Let's talk about getting people involved. When you had asked about recruiting, recruiting volunteers is different than recruiting Americorps members. For so many different reasons.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, is that they are not volunteers. They're actually Americorps members that serve and get a very small stipend for a small amount of time. And like I had also mentioned, there's about 20 Americorps programs within the Governor's Office of Service and Volunteerism, and Volunteer Maryland's one of them. So when we're looking at recruiting members, and we kind of touched on age a little bit, what's really interesting is it depends on what the program is and what the motivation of that Americorps member is. Why do they want to serve in Americorps? My motivation was to get experience. And I also thought I was applying for a job, but that was fine.
Yeah.
I got experience. But then
in effect, you were applying for a job.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And we do try not to talk about Americorps service as work, or this is my job. This is a service opportunity. It's another way of serving your country in a very different way than going into the military. But it is something that people take, just take time out of their life for a year to serve. We have, in our Americorps program right now, we have a young lady who will be celebrating her 70th birthday in January.
Wow.
And this is her 2nd year of serving. So there's other programs like Vista, which is also Americorps programs, and if people are interested in applying, they would go on, I think it's my.americorps.gov, and there's just hundreds of opportunities all across the country where they can apply to these programs.
Yeah. And I did that. I have gone to the website, and the list of things, I had to stop. I didn't have enough time to look through all of the things. And it's not always a year or 6 years or whatever. I saw some things that were a one and done kind of thing. It really was every kind of volunteering. I saw something where it was putting flowers on graves at veterans' cemeteries. So that's obviously not a long-term commitment necessarily. It's you do it that day and you're done. There were things like cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay and different things like that. So you're right, it is all ages and all levels of experience, it looked like.
Yeah, one of the, speaking of cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay, one of the programs is the Chesapeake Conservation Corps. And I think they have a group of about 30 Americorps members that focus on the sustainability of the bay and how can we make our communities more sustainable to this really important estuary that's so important to the world, Maryland and the United States and the world. So there's programs specifically targeting environmental programs. And one of the exciting things too is after you serve in Americorps and you've completed a service year successfully, you're part of an alumni of over 1 million people who have served.
Wow.
In Americorps programs.
Wow.
And there's a couple companies out there that are service employees, and they're looking for that A. They want to see that experience. And we have a couple here in Maryland. Comcast is actually a service employer who's looking for individuals who have served an Americorps program, because it shows one of two things. It shows that you committed to something, because it's not always easy. I mean, literally, our members get about $600 every 2 weeks, and they're trying to live in life, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do I do this? So it's not easy to get through the service year, and sometimes you're going into an organization where there's a lot of change going on, and you've made this commitment. So when you're finished, to be able to say to your employer, this is how I dealt with change, this is how I worked through conflict, like being able to have that is phenomenal, and that's why these service employers are looking for people who have this experience. And after you complete a successful service year, you also get an education award, and that's somewhere up in the 6,000s, and that can be used to an educational institute through the Siegel Award. And you can use it either pay down debt, was something I did, or you can use it to do grad school or whatever your next adventure is. We had a member that used it to travel around Alaska in a kayak because it was an educational experience.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's good federal dollars.
Yeah, really.
It was a good experience.
I mean, that person earned it by doing
absolutely.
that year's worth of service.
Yeah, so serving in Americorps is more than more than serving in your community. There's so much more that the individual gets out of it, and there's a network within that. It's like 7 degrees of separation of Americorps once you've served. You cannot turn around and not see somebody that has served in Americorps. And Volunteer Maryland's like that too. We've had over 750 Americorps members go through our program. And right now we're in a campaign to re-engage those members. It's called Return to Serve, and we've launched an alumni group on Facebook and also on LinkedIn. We have about 50 members in our LinkedIn group, which is really, really great, because these are people who have gone on to do phenomenal things, and there's a good network of individuals that have gone through the same service that you have gone through. So, I mean, it's a great opportunity for people, and I'm so glad that I just kept on running and following the box of chocolates.
Yeah,
and
there you go. Exactly.
Had the opportunity.
So if somebody wants to see what's available in Maryland, where would you look for that?
Yeah, so there's 2 options. You can go to the My Americorps website, and if you type in Maryland, it'll pull up all of the opportunities for Maryland. We'll be recruiting in May, so if you're interested in Volunteer Maryland, actually I would say go to our site, and that will take you straight to the application. But if you're looking for all the opportunities, you can go to My Americorps, and then also you can go to Maryland, the Governor's Office of Service and Volunteerism, and you can click on Americorps grantees, and that is a list of all of the Americorps programs that are funded through this office. So the acronyms, right? GOSV receives federal money that they disperse to Americorps programs in Maryland. So they have a portfolio of about 20 Americorps programs. So that gives you an idea of some of the programs that are here in the state.
Yeah.
2
And
different areas.
it is funded by the federal government. Is there, I hate to ask, a chance that it will not be funded? I mean, is it one of those things that might be on the bubble, or is it pretty solid?
Yeah, I mean, every year it's something that the new administration goes, what is this? You know, but it's a very bipartisan office. The Corporation for National Community Service is simply looking at making our community stronger and better, and everybody across the aisle agrees that it's important. And you know, there is, if an organization's looking to be an Americorps program, there's a kind of a big process to that, and the GOSV, the Governor's Office of Service and Volunteerism, can help them navigate that. And there is a cash match that's involved, so with any grant monies, you know, there's that kind of piece to it as well. But there's different options. if an organization feels like they want to be an Americorps program, I always say start with Volunteer Maryland. Let us put an Americorps member at your site and see how the program works, because there is a lane that AmeriCorps members need to stay in. And usually we're recruiting very motivated individuals that are mission driven and service oriented, and they will be like, yep, I'll do that, yep, I'll do that, yep, I'll do that. And then at the end of the service year, they're like, did I even get my project done? What was I supposed to do here? It's all good stuff. But
and those are the employees that people want to hire, obviously.
And a lot of times our members get hired by their sites. Not a promise, but it happens a lot.
So unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. So if you could just tell us one more time the website to go to for Volunteer Maryland.
Yep, Volunteer Maryland is volunteer.maryland.gov. And the AmeriCorps site is my.americorps.gov.
I'll have it. Thank you, Nicki,
thank
so
you.
much. Very, very exciting, wonderful program. Please, if you're interested in volunteering or in being part of hiring volunteers, go to these websites and check it out. Thank you so much for joining us on Connecting Our Community, and I hope you join us for our next show.